1 week season.
Guys, today it is very obvious. Pricing is tight on DraftKings, so how are we going to fit in the studs like Puka, Nacua, Jackson Smith, and Jigbo, StatATL? He has a plan, and we're going to break it down for you in today's show. It has something to do with some of the recent shuffling around in the NFL. A little trade action between the Browns and the Bengals has opened up some value, and we're going to get to all that. With that aside, though, he is StatATL. I'm your host, Cheeseman, and we welcome you in to the DFS Lab where we build a lineup on DraftKings looking ahead to Week 6, and we talk through strategy. We talk through it all. Guys, it's presented by 1 Week Season, as you know, and we would love it if you would give a like to the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. StatATL, my man, how's it going? How you doing, man? How was week 5?
Week five was good. My had some sweats again last week. I am not a high dollar player. I generally play a lot of the single entries and 3 max. Typically the $50 single entry is usually my biggest dollar amount. I don't know, like when I go to the casino, I'm just as happy to play, $15 blackjack. I don't need to play $100 a hand to have fun. So, $50 single entry is usually my kind of my best bet, and third time this season with like a top whatever it is 3%, 4% finish in that contest.
A little visual representation here. Here it is right here. This was good, man. And where could this have been if? And I was in the same boat as you. We texted, exchanged lineups on Sunday afternoon as the afternoon window was kicking off. And I had a lineup that I was feeling very good about, that had a huge Lions stack. And, the Lions end up putting up a pretty nice game in terms of score, but it just did not go to the places I needed it to go. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a pretty forgettable game. Sorry, I kind of stole your thunder, but just think where this could have been.
Yeah, going into the afternoon, I had Breece Hall, Rico Dowdle, Jake Ferguson, and Saints D. So all like somewhat, reasonably popular pieces, but, really strong scores out of all 4 of them with a lot of PMR remaining. I kind of was fiddling with what I felt like gave me the best chance to try to get to a top of a leaderboard. I was actually pretty adamant most of the week that I wasn't going to play Jamar Chase. And then as I kind of got to the, to the 4 o'clock hour, as someone who has traditionally written the late swap article for OWS every year, just kind of looked at it and had to kind of step back and as Matty P would say, erase my biases, kind of looking at what gave me the biggest chance for ceiling. And that was building a lineup around Detroit playing well and succeeding, with Jamar Chase keeping the game interesting, where Detroit keeps its foot on the pedal. It started to play out that way later in the game. And I thought that this had a chance. Quentin Johnson kind of got phased out of the Chargers game after that fumble, which kind of killed this roster a little bit. But, like third week of the season, or 3 out of the last 4 weeks with a roster in the top 200 in that 4,600 person contest, that was live. So it's all you can kind of ask for. Like, I generally only put 10 to 12 rosters in play. So, with the $50 single entry being my best bet. So, we'll try to do it again this week and give ourselves a sweat for the afternoon. That's all you can really do.
That's right, man. Yeah, I absolutely had some lineups as well that were actually, I had a lineup. It was in a small tournament, like small field. I think it was around 1,200 total was the total field size. And entering right after the kickoff, the afternoon slates, it was tied for first in the contest. It had awesome. Like 204, and it had the Seahawks defense, which I had felt, decent about. I mean, it's a good defense. Tampa Bay is a good offense, but at home in Seattle, figured Baker Mayfield sometimes can, make an ill-advised throw or two, and their defense finished with -1 points. So where that lineup went. It went straight backwards. But certainly had some lineups in play and felt good about that. I did play quite a bit of Bryce Young. I had mentioned last week on the show that I was going to play some Bryce and probably will again this week, even though he's not very good at, does not seem to be figuring it out right now and doesn't seem that good at football, but hopefully he can get it rolling at some point. But yeah, man, it was, I felt pretty good about the week and just feel like if the Lions had done a little better, I do wish I had looked more at that Seahawks and Tampa Bay game just as a game that could have had that upside because of just how aggressive Tampa Bay is, and you have explosive pieces on both sides. I was pretty much, except for a couple of shares of JSN, I had really no piece of that game. So, yeah, man, but overall it was good. So, but I love this. I love this lineup. I don't actually know, did the lineup cash? Do you know if the lineup cashed? I know we're doing this live. We normally figure it out beforehand, but last week's lineup that we built, do you know if it cashed?
I didn't calculate it, to be honest. I didn't end up putting it in play. Some weeks we put it in play. Some weeks we don't, just because.
Exactly.
As you know, and maybe some of the viewers know, like this show typically airs like midday Thursday, but you and I record on Tuesdays. So a lot of news.
Sometimes Wednesday.
Yeah. So, a lot of news kind of changes. And again, I generally play limited lineups. So I don't put the lineup in play if my pool has shifted and guys that we build on Tuesday are not guys I'm considering anymore. So exactly. I don't know.
And Rico Dowdle, I don't think that we were even talking about Rico Dowdle at that point. And I think by the end of the week, that almost certainly would have been in there. So again, yeah, sometimes it is fun to look back on lineups that we did build on Tuesday and say, hey, this cashed, or this didn't. But when it's like you have such major shifts in terms of news and value opening up, it almost renders it a moot point. So regardless, though, we look ahead to week 6. Let's open up DraftKings here. And, obviously we'll just jump into kind of what we typically like to jump into here.
Yeah, just kind of any single entry with anywhere between 2,000-3,000 up to like 10,000, or even, that 175K fair catch is a tournament that I generally play most weeks.
Yep, the 175 fair catch.
Yep, that's perfect. That's one we've won in the past. I think that and the $50 single entry are like my two big, like single entry takedowns. I keep playing these. I keep playing these every week. And honestly, like the point that we just kind of alluded to, like to me when I did my first look, there's just not a ton of value right now as of Tuesday, and so I think we'll probably build a lineup that's going to incorporate some value, but. If we get a piece like Rico Dowdle last week, like that really shifts things where now I'm getting a 4,300 starting running back who's going to touch the ball 15 to 20 times. Like, yeah, that's a slam dunk. Obviously there's no such things as like free squares, but that's a really good bet. And one that if you're wrong, it's only hurting you for 4,000 in salary versus, hey, I'm going to play an 8,000, guy who, and if he only gets you 15, 20 points, like, that really is hurting you.
Can't really survive that. Yeah. It's hard to survive that. Yeah, very hard to survive that. Yeah, exactly. At this point, it does feel like looking at kind of salaries and stuff like that. It's like, where is the value? And it's always around this time, week 6 or so. First of all, we only got 10 games on this slate. And so that condenses the player pool. On top of that, the pricing for DraftKings is starting to tighten up. Rico Dowdle last week was 4,300. His price jumps to 58. Even Rachaad White, who he had some nice touchdown, just kind of equity that went his way, but his price jumped to, I think, 6K now, Rachaad White. So, there's not a whole lot of value here. I think, though, as we kind of take our typical 10,000-foot view, I definitely... and if you want to check out the show that Hilo and myself did on Tuesday, he really liked Bryce Young, built a Bryce Young stack in that, so you can certainly check that out. I mean, I will definitely be going back to Bryce Young. I'm curious, like, how owned he will be. I'm not going to make any predictions at this point because I feel like as the week builds and people talk about how bad the Dallas defense is, I feel like Bryce Young could gain steam, especially just with the need for value. But I certainly will be going back to him. I mean, I did watch some of the game, and it just, I can't say I'm terribly impressed with what Bryce Young is putting on tape, and just, he doesn't have a whole lot of like elite weapons. Obviously McMillan is going to be good, but he's still just a rookie. So yeah, I mean, but still, 4,800 Dallas defense, you figure they're going to have to be scoring points. Maybe he can run one in. So I do like going back to Bryce Young, and then just continuing to look for game environments where you could see a game really get going, where teams are going back and forth, like that the Seattle Tampa Bay game this past Sunday. Like, that is the perfect game environment that I'm looking for every week, where teams are just scoring touchdowns and it's back and forth, and like there basically is almost, it feels like there's no defense. Not sure which game environment will develop into that yet. San Francisco, Tampa Bay, I could see that once again. And I think Tampa Bay is an offense that, one of the few offenses in the league where they are just going to be aggressive. That is their mindset. They're going to throw the ball and they're going to be aggressive and push the pace, whereas a lot of teams will just kind of sit back and not really do anything until they absolutely have to. So that's kind of my 10,000 foot view there.
Yeah, Cheese, I like that. To me, there's a couple of good spots or potential spots with a lot of fantasy goodness that do stand out. When I did my first look, I did like Carolina. That was a spot that stood out. I felt like Bryce Young was in a good. This was a good spot for him against a Dallas defense that's been very, very appealing, very friendly to opposing teams. I did really like that spot. You take a look and you've got Green Bay at home facing the Bengals. They probably, like the Lions last week, they're probably right around 30 points of an implied team total.
Huge.
I feel like that's probably a spot that I really like. And then you've got like the Rams. I feel like the Rams, when I looked at the Rams against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of came away with it basically saying the Rams are the most concentrated offense in the league, and Baltimore is just literally getting shelled. And so, again, it's Tuesday, but mentally, after my first look, I was like, I might have a mental rule of every roster I build is going to have one of Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams. Every roster I feel like needs to account for them. I don't know.
I agree.
But the places that stand out, the players that I want to get to, are all really expensive. So we've got to find some pay down options. And one that stands out to me, which candidly is not going to be for the faint of heart, because they've got a 16 or 17 point team total. So people who build that way looking at Vegas team totals are going to be like, stat, you're drunk. And maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right, who knows. But when I was doing my first look, what stood out to me, honestly, was the spot for Dillon Gabriel at 4,400. I feel like the Steelers, they've only played 4 games. They had a week 5 bye, but every quarterback they've faced, which is not like a murderer's row of quarterbacks. It's Justin Fields and Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz and Drake May. They all went for more than 17 points. Fields and Wentz went for 26 plus points. And Dillon Gabriel's 4,400. So, yeah, You're kind of betting on it before you see it. It's a guy making his second start. He's going to be on the road. So, yeah, I mean, I could totally see why you would shy away from this. But, if we're able to get 15 to 20 points out of Dillon Gabriel, like this is borderline, I don't want to say a smash, but really opens up a lot to give you a lot of different options. So that's really where I want to start our build.
Yeah,
our build.
I've got got 16 fantasy points. Overseas against a very good Minnesota defense this past week. I mean, I have to admit, I did not realize he had the 16. I did not watch the London game, or I don't know if it was in London even, but somewhere over there. So that's certainly, that bodes well. So you got Dillon Gabriel. I'm assuming that you want to stack him with someone.
Believe it or not, I want to stack him with two people. If I'm gonna bet on Cleveland, I'm really going all in here, and we're gonna kind of take a less traditional stack. We're gonna pair him with a running back. I really like Quinton Junkins. Coming off basically seeing 20 opportunities in each of the past 3 weeks. Seeing he's getting a lot of opportunity. He's 5,900, and I think right now he's the cheapest running back that I feel comfortable with.
Yes.
If we get news around Hubbard missing again, like Rico Dowdle at home in a revenge game against his former team at 5,800, that would become super appealing to me. But right now, like the cheapest running back I'm comfortable with is Judkins. And then when you look at his very first start, like Gabriel really, and this is very common for rookie quarterbacks, is they target their tight ends. And so I like going here, saving some salary and going down to David Njoku at 3,500. I think this gives us a way of spending, not even 8,000 between theoretically primary pass catcher, with Cedric Tillman on IR for out for Cleveland. Like David Njoku saw a few more snaps. Like they've got Fannin seeing a good bit of time as well. But to me, I like what this potentially opens up for us at other positions. And this is a spot where I feel like we're not asking the world here to. Oh, I love that you're pouring champagne.
It's I'm not drinking on the air. It's actually just sparkling apple cider. That's so boring.
You could. Your secret would be safe with us.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, this is a three-player stack where we're basically getting quarterback, probably pass catcher one, and running back from Cleveland.
Yeah.
For what, less than 14,000? Like, if we get a score in the 50s up to 60 points out of three players, like basically if we can get them to average 15, 20-ish points a player, which I feel like is well within the range of outcomes, that really will allow us to kind of get in some studs into this lineup, where I feel like
yes.
a lot of people, if value doesn't open up, people are going to either decide that they want to play a very balanced build, which I feel like is not traditionally where people want to go, because they get FOMO when they see, when they see the pay up names of, Christian McCaffrey's on the slate, or JT's on the slate, or Puka Nacua's on the slate, and they just don't want to build lineups without at least one of them. So, it makes them have to be, with the lack of value, it just kind of makes you have to take some dart throws. And to me, I'm much more willing to do that if could potentially kind of make one bet on Cleveland being better than Vegas expects in this matchup. And then I could get three pieces right instead of just throwing three uncorrelated darts. So I kind of like this approach. So
yeah, I love this stack. Just kind of playing off it exactly like you said with Njoku, the kind of that safety net for the rookie quarterback Judkins as well. I mean, I think that Judkins is due. I mean, one of these weeks he's going to have a blow up spot. That's at least my prediction. So okay, so we got our primary stack. Where do you want to go next here?
Yeah, and I think one thing to kind of to notice, like, I don't know that a player block like this needs a bring back, because I don't need Pittsburgh to be scoring a whole bunch of points for this to give me to give me 50, 60 points in fantasy points, like, just because of how cheap everybody is. Like, I don't need monster game. I don't need Pittsburgh keeping this and making this be a high scoring game. Like, these three players can get there literally in a 21-17 game because of their salaries. Yep,
without a doubt. So no Pittsburgh bring back then.
Yeah, no Pittsburgh bring back. And so, I mean, we kind of alluded to the fact that this is going to allow us to get some studs in. Let's jump to wide receiver and let's get a couple of those studs in. And to me, that's, as we talked about, like, I feel like, to me, this starts and ends with Puka Nacua. It's interesting because I think for the very first time when I did a first look, like, I went through all 10 games, wrote up my little blurbs, position by position, what I liked in each game. And then I came back to kind of reevaluate Puka Nacua, because he's kind of in his own territory in terms of his price and the ownership that he's likely to garner. And so, he's been giving you a lot of those mid-20, he's kind of living in the 25-point range. He's got that 39-point outlier. But if he doesn't give you that 35-plus points, and he's giving you these 25-point games, which is what he's been, he's been very consistent in that number. But at 8,700, like, 25 points, again, a lot has to do with what else happens on the slate, but 25 points, even 30 points at his salary is not winning you a tournament. He's not going to be a player you can't win likely. If he's the only player who scores 30 points, if he's the only guy who gives you more than 24 points and he scores 30, like, you probably need him just because of raw points. But if he's only scoring 28 points and you've got other guys who are giving you 22, 23, like, you may not need him because he's just not giving you a high enough salary multiplier score. So, but I do think that with how dysfunctional Baltimore has been, I feel like I want to account for one of the Rams pieces with how concentrated they've been. They've already given up touchdowns to 12 different wide receivers, or pass catchers. Like, you're getting a lot of production against them, and they just haven't given up a ton of monster scores because it's just been so spread out. But we know that the Rams aren't spread out. They're the most concentrated offense. So I'm willing to take a shot on Puka Nacua here, and I think we probably need to account for that later in our build, basically saying if Puka Nacua is giving us a 35-point score, Baltimore is probably not rolling over. They're probably making it somewhat competitive. So I would probably want to include a Zay Flowers, a Derrick Henry, a Rashad Bateman, a Mark Andrews. Like, I would want to account for Baltimore making it a competitive game. Next kind of piece that really stood out to me, we'll stick at expensive wide receiver. I think you could go Jamar Chase. Let's go JSN here. And maybe we will go Jamar Chase. Let's just kind of see where the roster
shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, we got some exciting-ish news with the Bengals trading for Joe Flacco, who we know wants to throw the ball 30 or 40 times. And so I feel like he'll likely lock on to Jamar Chase. We've seen what Jamar Chase could do just last week, his second 30-plus point game of the season. So we may go there. To me, like, this is a spot that kind of did stand out for JSN. He's got 20-plus DK points in 4 out of his 5 games. And Jacksonville's gotten smashed the last couple of weeks by some receivers, like more of these elite guys, which I think JSN is establishing himself as an elite guy. Jamar Chase, 14, 165 and a touchdown. Nico Collins, 8 for 100 and something and a touchdown. Like, I think we've seen ceiling against Jacksonville. And I don't know that Seattle's going to be able to establish much on the ground against the Jags. Like, I don't think the Jags have allowed an opposing running back to go for 60 yards yet this season. So,
yeah, they're definitely had a good run defense.
So I think that maybe, we see JSN be involved with 10 plus targets this week. And I'm willing to kind of bet that we get another 25, 30-point game out of him this week. I like the bet on this roster with kind of our pay down options. So.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right. So far, for those of you keeping track, it's Gabriel, Judkins, and Joku as the Cleveland stack, very cheap stack. And Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba, 2 of the stud receivers in there. Got 4 spots left and about $5K per player.
Yeah. So I think if we go to running back, I think another team that I want to account for, they've got the highest team total on the board, is the Packers. Again, Cleveland defense hasn't really been great.
Or Cincinnati, you mean, right?
Cincinnati, sorry. Yeah. Cleveland's defense actually has been great. Cincinnati's defense, not so much. In every game, they've allowed an opposing running back to score at least 1 touchdown. Josh Jacobs is basically a bell cow back for the Packers. He's seen 21 plus touches every week. And I think that doesn't change this week. And I think we go Josh Jacobs here. And we kind of finished out a running back spot, and we decide if we want to add another. I'm not sure we're going to have the salary for it, even with just 4,000 left.
Yeah, I mean, it's I doubt we'll be able to fit another running back. And I'm guessing, do you want to go defense next to see kind of where we are?
Yeah, let's go defense. Again, not a ton that I really loved this week. I think kind of in the mid-range. I kind of like the Jaguars on first look. They are at home. We've got Seattle traveling cross country for a 10 a.m. Pacific start. I don't mind Jacksonville here, and I think kind of the thought is if we're playing this type of build, Jacksonville maybe gets that pick 6 early, and that's forcing Seattle to throw more, where I can have Jaguars D and JSN still succeeding, and this roster not be taking away from each other.
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, when you think of narratives, Seattle coming off a very tough loss, where Sam Darnold basically, threw an interception that sealed their fate. And yeah, going cross country, going to that humidity. So you want to put Jacksonville in here?
Yep, I want to go Jacksonville in here. I think one of the spots we wanted to talk about accounting for was like, if we're gonna play Puka Nacua, let's play a Raven. And so I think at the price tags we're going to be able to afford, it's probably going to be Rashad Bateman. I don't think we can get to Zay Flowers at 5,900. Like, we're just not going to have, or maybe we will. But I think here, 5,400 with a flex kind of gives us a lot of options.
Yeah. So, I mean,
we could lean in here with Jaylen Warren or Kenneth Gainwell against Cleveland. But my notes literally just say no running backs against the Browns until further notice.
Yeah.
So, I'm out on those two. I'm out on those two this week. I think with the news that we got in New England of one of the running backs, I'm drawing a blank, sorry, was put on IR today. That room gets a little bit more condensed, so I don't mind. Antonio Gibson. Yeah. Yep. I don't know that I feel like you could get to Henderson. I feel like you could get to Ramondre Stevenson. I'm expecting Kevontae Turpin and CeeDee Lamb to both miss again for Dallas. against this Carolina team. Like, I don't mind playing a double tight end build here and going Jake Ferguson. They're both 1:00 games, so I don't know that you even need to make a adjustment there. And I think I don't mind this. And if you'd rather not play a wide receiver against their defense, I mean, honestly, let's lose JSN and let's go up to Jamar Chase. We've got correlation there with Josh Jacobs. We're shooting from the hip here.
Okay.
I don't mind that either. So we've basically got a Cleveland block and then Jacobs and Chase as a mini correlation, Puka Nacua and Rashad Bateman as a mini correlation, and then just Jake Ferguson is kind of a one-off in a really, really great spot against Carolina.
Yeah, I like Jamar Chase there with the Josh Jacobs correlation. And I mean, it kind of just ebbs and flows. Right now, tight end, it feels like there's a lot of really good tight end plays, a lot of guys in really high value roles. I mean, Jake Ferguson, man, I mean, he's putting up huge numbers right now, and he's only 5,300. I think double tight end is definitely in play where we're at in a league right now. Just because, again, like Tucker Kraft, he's good. Warren, I mean, these guys are all sub. And remember the days where it's like it cost $8K to play Kelsey? That was, those were wild. But I like this build. For those of you listening on the pod, finish with Dillon, Gabriel, Quinshon Judkins, and Njoku, the Browns stack with Jacobs, Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, Jake Ferguson, and the Jaguars D at tight end. Stat, as always, really sharp stuff. Any final thoughts as we send this one away?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that a lot of people, like Jake Ferguson is going to be popular this week. So if you had built this lineup with Ferguson in the tight end spot, and then your flex, and you've got mid 3Ks where you're filling a flex, like I feel like David Njoku gives you just as much ceiling as basically any like 3K wide receiver this week. So
or more,
I certainly don't mind that. I feel like if you feel like you need to go down and punt in the 3K range, like I don't mind it with tight end. I mean, I wouldn't mind it with Harold Fannin either. Like I feel like you've got upside there as well that you're not getting with some of these wide receivers that I think may gain some steam that are going to see 3, 4, 5 targets a week. Like, I just don't see 15 to 20 point upside out of those guys. But you got a guy like Njoku who I think we saw 9 or 10 targets last week and could very easily give you a 6 for 60 and a touchdown and get you 18 points in the 3K range. Like that's a really strong score. So,
yep, absolutely. He is StatATL, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to head to oneweekseason.com and check out what we got going on over there. But with that, and until next time, guys, hope to see you at the top of the leaderboards. Stat, take it easy, my man.
You too, buddy.